comes on live. Welcome to You Be the Judge. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer, and then we have our two lovely co-hosts, Marilyn Pierre, who ran for Circuit Court Judge in Montgomery County here in Maryland, and then we have Judge Claudia Barbara, who will come on sooner than later. We normally, I just want to let people know you can always catch us on either on my YouTube channel or iHeart or Apple or any other podcast channels you pick up. Just put in Bridges Live, You Be the Judge, and you will hear us live. I would like to say thank you to all the people who are listening. I'd like to say thank you to all the people who support the show. And I'd like to say thank you to all the American people who want to see some type of change. These are the things that's the most important to me and most important to us here at this show. Now, as we wait for the other co-hosts to come on, I'm going to first ask the question before I get started, because as the people here who join the show, we have Miss Miner here, and then we have other people who are off air. Would there anyone who'd like to share an update on the things they've been going through this week? Anyone at all? If not, I don't like dead air. That's because that's the radio thing in me. But here's the thing. I want to ask people a couple of questions. We know that we are going into certain circumstances in our civilization. It's actually, I've heard and people talk about the civil unrest that we're having in our nation and in our communities. What do you think civil unrest comes from? Would anyone like to answer? Does it come from economic deficiencies, or does it come from just crime, or does it come from us not knowing our neighbors? What does civil unrest means to you? Because when it comes to understanding what civil unrest is, I think there's a lack of understanding of how civility actually happens. There's not a correlation between civil unrest and civil understanding. But you can marry the two to understanding that this is why we're in so much turmoil emotionally and physically when it comes to our neighbors, the police, the laws, the things that are happening in our system, the things that are happening in our political capital, not our capital, I mean more like political money, right? So a lot of times when we talk about political capital, we talk about what is it like to spend money on things that we need to take care of? Political capital can be votes. Political capital can be people you have in office. Political capital can be things that we're moving through what you call legal systems. What is that like for you? And how are we spending our political capital collectively? Because we know there are certain people in certain states. We look at Texas, they're always looking at succeeding in succession, and the way the governor is working down there in Texas, it doesn't seem, I just found out recently that Texas has the most people, most black American in a state. I did not know that. I did not know that statistically. But if Texas and the way they're going, a lot of people would not be happy, black America would not be happy if they succeeded and they do the laws the way they would like to do it. Will, can you hear me now? Marilyn, you're on mute.
Oh, yes, I could hear.
No, not Marilyn. Miss Miner, you're on mute.
Oh. Hello. And Will can't hear.
I can't hear you, Will.
I think some of the people are having technical difficulties on You Be the Judge. Remember, you can have You Be the Judge here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Miss Miner, go ahead, speak.
I was going to say first to Will, he may have to go out and come back in, such as myself. But to answer your question, Dr. Dyer, it's a combination. It has to do with economy, it has to do with crime, it has to do with people not voting.
Now, here's the thing. When it comes to crime, I
can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Can't hear.
Oh,
Can't hear.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me now? Hi, Judge Claudia Barbara. It looks like some of the people are having technical difficulties with their hearing. But Miss Miner said, I was asking people.
Dr. Dyer, you're on mute.
Ah, look at that. Oh my goodness. Look at me. I'm up here babbling away. So when you talk about civil unrest, Ms. Minor, you said something about crime and economics. Judge Claudia Barber, there is my co-host right there. When they talk about crime and economics, I actually think people are more economically in dysfunction than it causes crime, than crime causes economic dysfunction. When we talk about civil unrest, civility, we're having more unrest because we don't have civility or understanding of where our life actually sits within ourselves and within our community. Will cannot hear us. Can someone call Will's phone?
I know
Marilyn,
that he's responding to the chat, so maybe, okay, he must have done what somebody suggested, which is to go back out and come back in again. And I definitely agree with you on the economic part, and maybe we should take this one step at a time,
go ahead.
because I have been.
Hold on. Time out. I'm in a just.
I'm excited about this. I can't wait to talk to
I'm
you.
in a Just Do It shirt, and Judge Claudia Barber is in gorgeous outfit. Marilyn Pierre is in a gorgeous suit outfit. I'm underdressed. I have to come out and come back in because I look like Dr. Raggedy Bones here. This is enough. I didn't get the memo.
No, don't forget, look at Evangelist Minor. She always is immaculately made. Her hair is always in place, and look at those gorgeous earrings. I mean, and she's such a beautiful woman. Is that politically correct nowadays? Because I hear you're not supposed to tell kids that they're cute anymore. I can't really remember why, because I didn't think there was, there was such a bad thing to say to a child, hey, you're good looking. So I don't want to offend anyone, but
I think I had to go get a jacket.
Evangelist Minor is a beautiful, beautiful woman.
I actually think I'm going to have to go get a dinner jacket.
Yeah, I think, well, we take you as you are because you're what's important to us. You are right. Look at Judge Barber. She's gorgeous. And I really like what you're wearing. I just happen to be dressed the way I'm dressed.
I'm coming from work, so that's the reason why.
It was me. And traffic was a bear today, but I had to go.
It was.
Traffic was.
Oh my
gosh. Yeah, it was really a bear today.
So go ahead, Marilyn. You were talking about economics.
Well, I was talking about economics. You know how you usually start off by asking me what I did with my weekend? Well, tell me what you did with your weekend, because I'm really excited to talk about my weekend. And once we get started talking about it, I don't want to go back and then feel like I've got to ask you. So you tell me first, and then I will tell you.
What did I do? I did something important. I'll have to get back to you because I just drew a blank. I taught something, lectured something, and wrote something. That I am sure of.
Well, I actually had a birthday weekend because my birthday sometimes falls on Labor Day and sometimes it doesn't. But this weekend was a fantastic weekend for me. I attended a wedding in Norfolk, Virginia, and I also attended, Barnes & Noble's had a spectacular book sale. A lot of the hardcover books were half price. So I went binge buying books and bought some really fantastic books. A book on the abolitionist, an abolitionist handbook. I actually bought Mary Surratt's, a book on Mary Surratt, a Civil War history person. Because I wanted to learn more. Thank you. I wanted to learn more about her trial and how it went, and whether or not it was a railroad conviction or was it really a fair trial.
Do you want to bring people up to date on Surratt's trial and how it actually turned a lot of the 13th Amendment after that? So I think you want to bring people up to date on that trial.
Yeah, so that book intrigued me, and they had so much Black history books. Now they don't put them all necessarily in the Black history section, but you know, I've already bought Slavery by Another Name and a lot of Ta-Nehisi Coates and a lot of Michael Eric Dyson and more books. I've just gotten books and books and books and books on account of race and you know, all of that. But I just bought a boatload more, and I was thrilled that all the choices that I had out there. I also bought, when they ran the sale, I think last Christmas, I bought Her Honor, and I started reading that. And I also bought another book about Rig Justice. And this was the story of the people who were arrested, convicted, and did jail time for, now everybody recognized this story died in the news, but remember the celebrities that got their children admitted into these elite schools,
Yeah.
and then it was not based on merit or anything like
It's all
that.
money. It was all money.
But they paid somebody off to do it, and so I really wanted to learn more about, you know, who went down and who didn't went down, and who was the scapegoat and all that. So there is a book out there called Rig Justice, and I pulled that book up and bought it. Sometimes I just really go on a book buying binge when I see fascinating books that I can't, you know, I don't know if they, I bought a book on Fannie Lou Hamer. That was another one. It was the last one on the shelf. Like, thank you. Yes. Woo, got it. So, I'm really excited about that. Now that was my weekend, so I'm thrilled. I'm happy. I am good. I am real good. I can't even tell you all the books by name, but that's the gist of it.
Well, did you know that Abraham Lincoln had planned to move all the blacks out of the United States to Brazil?
No.
Yeah.
What book is that?
It's a historic. I have to find where the book, I read it, but a historical issue of what Abraham Lincoln was trying to do. His issue was he didn't believe in slavery, but he didn't also want blacks here in America. So he had the idea of getting them shipped to Brazil.
Oh, I've heard about that, but I didn't know what country. I thought it was some country back on the continent of Africa.
No,
So it was Brazil, which would make sense. It's closer.
It's closer.
They could walk there,
Right,
you know,
right.
conceivably.
So
And it's like,
people
wow.
thought that Abraham Lincoln was really for blacks. He was really for just uniting the money. It was about the money, the North taking over the South's money. This, you know, everything had a lot to do. It had nothing to do with the civil rights, had nothing to do with blacks, and it had everything about killing the South's earning potential. They were earning so much money that the North could not ever contend with that amount of money. Their trade value across the world superseded the North by a factor of 10 easily. So if you kill the South's money, then you can take over the South's land and property. That's what
But that's not how things turned out.
No, well, okay.
You know? But so the thing is that when you really look deep into the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment, those are very comprehensive. And keep in mind, these are amendments to the Constitution.
Correct.
So they had to have, a large amount of support to get this stuff through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they did.
Well, they did I'm sure they wrung a lot of necks
Yeah.
and
yeah.
bribed a lot of people.
But you know, the 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah
Yes.
and I bought that book twice. You
Yes.
know, I got so happy. But the book, when she is on the master class, she delves into the 14th Amendment and how comprehensive that, you know, if you read that 14th Amendment through in a very comprehensive way, we really should not be having all these battles that we're having.
But we are, and I have
But we
read it
are.
because people haven't read it. And that has a lot to do with you attorneys, Judge Claudia Barr and Marilyn Pierre, and all you attorneys on this page, because there are people circumventing the
Yes.
wording.
Yes. Now let's talk about
It's not
that's
the word
the
itself,
judicial
it's the
system that's
interpretation.
doing that. That's the interpretation.
Exactly,
of the
because people want to interpret it however they think.
However they want to.
Yeah. Mhm.
And you just make a mockery of the system because you basically are saying those are just words on paper.
But
I interpret it and say whatever I want to say.
Isn't that law in itself is an interpretation, and it's how you can prove the interpretation? Isn't that the legal precedence in law?
Well, in law, the words have the meaning that they should have. So equal justice under the law means, you shouldn't be stopped 100 times by a cop, and I get for the same offense that another person doesn't get stopped for, and then incarcerated. I was actually thinking about a situation where someone mentioned was asked a question, and I found out that this person was arrested for drunk driving, but they never got a jail sentence. And I am looking at that now. I don't know how many, I count on my fingers the number of Black men that I know that was arrested for drunk driving and got a jail sentence. So I am thinking in my head that this is not equal justice under the law, but a lot of that has to do with how we have elected people that don't enforce the 14th Amendment as they should. Now we're to blame for that if you're going to put somebody on the bench that's not properly interpreting the 14th Amendment.
So I mentioned that, and I call that political capital, right? We can spend it the way we want. Political capital is how we vote. Political capital has something to do with how we spend our money. Political capital depends on who we have in office. And what we thought we were spending our political capital on, we got bamboozled.
Yeah.
We got robbed behind the counter. That's all it is. We believe because we don't know the law. And because we don't know the law, what we believe doesn't really amount to beans, because that's why Blacks don't have political capital.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, politicians don't do what we are led to believe that they are going to do too.
They never promise. They don't have to promise anything. And then
a fake promise. You might as well call it what it is. It's a fake promise.
And if they do promise, where do we hold them accountable? Because we can't take them to court over the promise. Right. So there is no legal issue with the promise. Is there? Or I don't know.
Well, it depends. I mean, if the promise is police reform, if the promise is, a police accountability board, well, in Maryland, that those promises, if somebody made them as campaign promises, they've been fulfilled. But people say, well, wait a minute now. That bill got watered down a lot.
Right.
We need to go back and do some more. Okay, well, you can, but who's making the campaign promise to do that?
No one.
And who's not? So where are we going to go? We're going to keep things in the status quo, or we're going to move forward?
And here you be the judge. We've talked a lot about things that we bring people, have a conversation, and Marilyn sometimes will say, well, what is our solution, right? She's such a solution-based attorney, and I think that's why they don't want her to be a judge. That's exactly what the issue is. It has nothing to do with because she's 5 foot something, or she's Black and she's a woman. She has so many solutions. They're like, we cannot have voice of reason in here.
Well, I think we're all looking at solutions, which is why we keep talking about these things as well. And I'm glad that Holly is out of the room, but I'm glad that she sometimes focuses us in terms of, okay, we know what the problems are. And unfortunately, I am going to bring up another problem before we get to solution. But I think it works really well with what Judge Barber was talking about, as well as what you were talking about, Dr. Dyer. I know, like I said, you usually ask me what I did for my weekend.
What'd you do?
My weekend, I went to the National Book Festival. That's one of my favorite events in this whole area. I really like that. We live so close. We could just take the metro or drive and just go there. I absolutely love it. And they had, of course, different segments, different books. One of the books that they had was called, his name is George Floyd, I think. It's
I saw that book. That's in the bookstore. That was on sale too. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, yes. Oh, and you are going to get that book. You know, I'm not even going to say you are going to want to get that book. I'm going to say you are going to get that book because they interviewed the author, Robert Samuels, at the National Book Festival. It's on YouTube. You could actually see the interview. And I was like, wow. Like I said, the name of the book is called, his name is George Floyd. And Robert Samuels and someone else who is from the Washington Post did some research where they researched George Floyd's family, I think 7 generations back. I mean, could you imagine? And they said, this is going to blow your mind. I'm sorry, they found that George Floyd's great grandfather was the first in George Floyd's family to be emancipated. He, at 8 years old, he was a slave, and then he was enslaved, and then he was enslaved. And
Wait a minute, you mean he was involuntary relocated? You gotta speak to
him. He was born in this country, so anyway.
No.
And he was emancipated, you know, because we are born free, but he was emancipated in our vernacular at 8 years old. Poor as anything, uneducated as anything. He manages to get 500 acres of land in North Carolina, which put him in the 2% wealth scale for that time. So he was a 2%er. 2%er. And because, whoops, sorry, somebody wants to talk with me, I guess. And so because he was uneducated, because he didn't know what his rights were, little by little, they managed to steal everything away from him. And
Terrible.
He ended up dying as a pauper. So think about what would have happened if George Floyd's family, who was at one point a 2%er, managed to keep that wealth, and that wealth is multiplied generation after generation after generation. So you could have George Floyd, who was accused of, of passing a $20 counterfeit bill or something like that.
Right.
You could have him.
Okay, so wait a minute now. We don't know the legitimacy. And I've never accepted the legitimacy of that story.
Well, I said he was
I haven't seen the dollar bill.
Nope.
And I don't even know. That's some junk.
That's bull.
It's bull. That's why I said he was accused of. That's what the phone call was about. The man was not convicted of anything, and even with a conviction, sometimes we have to, take that with a grain of salt. But I'm just thinking about the rule of law, as Dr. Dyer talked about. How is it that somebody who worked, they said he was very industrious and he worked very hard, and that's why he was able to accumulate that much wealth in his lifetime. And
you're talking about the ancestor.
The ancestor. Exactly.
Okay, so, but you know what? The thing is that when somebody has 500 acres and they have it taken from under them, the government can be complicit in how that's done.
That was the exact point. As a matter of fact, the government might have been one of the one of the entities that was responsible for taking it as well. And
all you have to do is say your real estate taxes is $1 million.
Right.
Exactly.
Because
because
they do that today. They do that with called intimate domain.
And I do probate cases, and sometimes I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, this family is going to lose this property because of some not so smart or not so educated thing that they did. And it's really, really sad. I know many Black families that has happened to, so that continues to happen. I see Holly had her hand up.
Well, I was going to recommend the article today in the Post about, I think her name is Sarah Rector, who had land that had oil in it. She was fantastically wealthy. And this could be because of the Depression. You know, no one seems to know how she went from, you know, great wealth to poverty. But anyway, it's just another story that should be read.
If we can come to some sort of an understanding that white men in these United States had taken so much from women, people, because they believe it was theirs. Once we come to that complete understanding, that is the why, or that's the how.
Mm-hmm.
We can then understand, we can then maybe figure out the why, but the why never brings the money back.
Exactly.
That's that. So once we, so what had happened, so what it did, we can never fix it. And that's
exactly.
And that's what we
That's
talk
true.
about reparations. We're not trying to get back something that, you know, Black America's owed. How about what Black America deserves?
Right. Well, look, if you look at the descendants of Sally Hemings, okay, first of all, the fact that Sally was raped should have disqualified him from being president. If you're going to apply the U.S. Constitution and laws,
Which is why we had 45. Rape does not disqualify you from being a president.
it's terrible. The fact that he was at all these, Thomas Jefferson, everything.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson Memorial, Thomas Jefferson this, Thomas Jefferson that. And the man is a rapist. Come on. Come on. I mean,
Well,
that's a
I agree
valid.
with you, and I would even go one further because she was so young when this
Exactly.
happened that one might even say that he was a child rapist, which might even be more
But-
aggravated.
But throw in the
but
fact she was a product of rape.
Exactly.
half-
Yeah,
sister of
that's true too. But saying all of that, I want to play devil's advocate and said, but he was a man of his time, and you know, we didn't know back, or those who lived back then didn't know that those kinds of things were wrong, and so therefore he was just a man of his time. Like I said,
You know, even if you accepted that, but see, you don't have to, in this day and age, you know, subscribe to the notion that you have to have statutes that live forever and forever and forever and forever and for memorializing these people. There should be a shift and a change in who you're memorializing. I mean,
Yes.
again, we have this new statute coming up in Dorchester County in Cambridge, Maryland, on Harriet Tubman. Let's change the statutes here. Who says they have to be here forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever?
yeah, and also, you know, you have the Library of Congress that I just said that I'd love to put there, and I have to give credit where credit is due because this was Laura Bush's initiative,
Right.
and I really appreciate that because, I love books, and I get to see so many great authors, and thank you, Laura Bush. We appreciate that. It's all free, everybody. I think it's almost always the first September, and I'm sorry, the first Saturday in September.
Someone put in the
Um,
chat, I saw it pop up, and I don't know if is that Miss Minor? Was the Civil War about slavery? The answer is no. But what do you have, Miss Minor?
Oh, she had another question in the chat. I don't know why we can't hear her. Okay, there you go.
Oh, okay. Recently, a cold case has been finalized with the gentleman. I think the cold case has been under investigation for 51 years. Okay, and then with the woman who had Emmett Till.
Okay,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right, yeah.
No, nothing is being done?
So
Is it
she lied. So
because
what?
she's old now?
No, I mean, she lied.
Now,
Okay.
the news story that I read about the sheriff deputy that was murdered and his assailant was, I understand he had confessed, admitted. One of the detectives went up to New York, found him, and he admitted that he killed him. Now, this is 51 years later, but that just kind of shows you how much attention certain crimes get. You know, some crimes are offered this substantial amount of reward monies, and a lot of people don't even understand how that works. And then you also have these crimes that go, this person has been free for 51 years.
51 years.
51 years.
I was down, and most people know I was down in the Equal Justice Center, the Slavery Museum that's down in Alabama. Yeah. And it has these etched in hangings of why people were hung and the reason why. They were all because of what someone said. There was not one hanging because of something else. Like, it's all because I saw him steal this, he was hung. I saw him do this, he was hung. So all the hangings that happen in these United States is because someone said something. It's not because it was proven in court and then hung. You know what I mean? Oh, those are not lynchings. Those are killings. Those are, the death penalty. So when we talk about lynching, it's because someone said something. And someone said they saw something. So Emmett Till is no different than the thousands of lynchings in these United States because someone said what they believe and what they wanted to believe. So you cannot bring those people to justice because it's okay for people to say what they think. It's not okay for how people act upon it. That's the difference.
Well, lynchings, however, I think can still be brought to justice, just like you had that warrant. Now, somebody knew that the warrant was necessary, and it was written out on Carol Bryant.
Right.
And so they had an intention to serve that warrant, but somebody just buried it. That's what I can tell. Now, based on what I've read thus far, that, the warrant was buried in hopes that nobody would ever find it.
Okay, so let's go back to Mississippi. We haven't left Mississippi, but Mississippi hasn't got any funding from the federal because the state holds it up. To Jackson, Mississippi, with all their water issue. Now we know Baltimore, people are trying to get water in Baltimore. Baltimore's been having a lead problem that I know of for 20 years. That I know of. And I hear it goes back further than that. But they've tested the water back 20 years. Baltimore City's had a lead problem. Jackson, Mississippi's had a lead problem for over 50 years.
But there are solutions to this, and they're not addressing and the solution end of things, because you have HBC universities that put out brilliant engineers, architects, that put out brilliant people that can go in and fix these problems.
Then why aren't they being fixed, Judge?
They need to put the money to that, to that cause and fix it. And it's not being done.
Here's one of those problems. You got me all jumped up.
In technology.
You got me. Wait, hold on, Mark. You got me all jumped up and hyped up on my seat, Judge Corey Barber. I agree. You have these HBC universities. I'm not talking about any other flipping university. You have HBC universities who live in a state who the state has so much flipping disastrous issues that instead of them dancing in courtyards throwing white parties, having these things. They should be in these neighborhoods doing what they do and fixing it, but they're not. And I blame the HBCU colleges for not being active in our communities.
Okay. That's a fair statement because they should be more active. At one point, years ago, they were the ones that were at the forefront of starting the marches,
Correct.
the
Right.
sit-ins.
Right.
It was the HBCUs that
Right.
did that campaign. That started the, okay, well, you 5 sit at the counter, then 5 more come on right behind them, and then the other 5 come right on behind them, and that was an
Well,
organized
Even in
campaign.
Montgomery County, not the carousel, Glen Echo Park. Yeah, it was Howard University students who were arrested for trying to integrate Glen Echo Park. And so, yes, I definitely agree with that. And as an HBCU former student and an HBCU graduate, Howard, woo, go Bison. Yes, I myself am a bit disappointed that you're right, Dr. Dyer. It's nice to have parties and things of that sort, but we have a higher mission that we need to address. And in the past couple of decades, it doesn't seem like it's being
That's
addressed at
where
all.
that discussion and that motivation needs to happen again.
Yes.
And I say that realistically because I don't think the solution is filing a lawsuit
No.
and waiting for years of litigation
Nope.
to just go whichever way, the judge says so. Because that system isn't perfect at all.
Systems are broken because the cost of containment of risk is so excessive that it is budgeted out of large-scale projects unless
Mark,
project.
Mark.
Let me finish my statement, just fair opinion. Just as in systems where death is imminent, their budget will have more capital allocated to it to cover that loss, such as in air flight. But systems on the ground, like the ones that are coming apart in killing lives, those systems had such a much longer window of time before a disastrous effect would happen. And so when they built these systems, even today, the cost of the containment of risk until it becomes something that's imminent, budgets won't cover that in their costs. And so it's.
But
Cool.
see, that speaks to a change in policy.
Yes.
Because when this pandemic hit, we found money in the couch.
Mhm.
In fact, we found billions of dollars in the couch
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
find formulas and ways to get a vaccine together.
Because that's what's imminent.
Which is why I don't think it's
Yes.
imminency that's the problem, because there's imminency in Baltimore, there's that in Mississippi right now, there's that in Michigan. I think it's the value that is placed on certain lives. Because if
It's imminent,
these kinds
imminency
of
in Baltimore now. It's imminent, but when that system was built,
But what I'm saying is that if that were happening in Baltimore County instead of Baltimore City, I think there would be a different response. I don't think the people in Baltimore County would.
Then why do blacks spend $41 billion on sneakers? So when you talk about cost, I talk about it hurts.
I agree.
It hurts.
I
It
agree.
hurts.
I don't-
If Black Americans can spend not on shirts, shoes, we're talking about $41 billion on sneakers.
And so much of it is on sneakers they're not even going to wear. You're right.
It boggles the mind.
boggles
So,
the mind.
but then those same people live in lead-filled cities.
Mhm.
Those still same people, majority of them, don't care that the political capital that we talked about, economic voting rights. We have talked about voting rights on this show, and we'll continue because we're in a voting season. And a lot of voting issues have gotten out of, now they're down to county issues. It used to be states issues. It's gotten down to it's gotten back to so bad, it's back to the 1950s and to what county sheriff depends on how you can vote or not vote. We're in trouble. We're in trouble.
Yeah, we are. And a lot of people, like you're saying, they don't recognize that we are in a state of crisis. And I don't know if the mind, sometimes it's easier to, put your head in the sand and say, there's not much I could do to change things, so I'm just going to.
It's not my problem.
Yeah. A lot of people say that. It's like, why bother? We hear it
Why
all
bother
the
me?
time.
I'm in
Yeah,
Montgomery
it's
County.
like,
I'm
I
not in
can't do
Baltimore
anything
City.
about this, so I'm moving on to something that I can do something about. I could buy a $300 pair of sneakers, or, we have a friend who wears $800 Prada sneakers, and his son wears $2,000 sneakers. I'm like, excuse me? I didn't even know there was a thing as a
I didn't know there was a thing.
$2,000 pair of sneakers. Now, he makes a lot of money, but he's,
That's
my
accept-
collection. So,
Come on now.
I just wanted to say good evening, everybody. I'm sorry I was late. But,
Oh,
and
no,
you're
welcome.
talking about misplaced values. But when you're talking about putting money into the coffers that's supposed to be used for, I assume those things like fixing pipes and schools and all of those things, then what happens to that? Why is it that we are now putting the onus on the individual and taking it off of the government, who, just like Judge Claudia said, can find money in a sofa?
Yeah, but I think the point is, if we were to use our money to help us get better people in office, then we can then expect those people to help the government to then help our people in need. Like, for instance, the friend that I just talked about, I just remembered he's never given a penny to my campaign. Now, mind you, I don't think I've asked directly, but he has.
Wait a minute, time out. You've hit the problem, the flipping problem. You say you have a friend who has X amount of money on shoes. You use not only you didn't use person somebody you passed by on the bus stop. You said a friend, and he never given money to your campaign, knowing you and what you would do.
Exactly, and that's the point. So we're not putting the onerous on individuals to change it. We're just saying, we could better invest that money to get the people we need in power, so that when they get in power, they could then recognize that it doesn't matter if there's, lead in the pipes in Baltimore City or Baltimore County.
Offended.
Or,
I'm offended. I'm offended.
Potomac. There's water in the pipes, and we need to change those pipes.
I'm offended. We have to be Teresa. This is what our issue is. Whoever this person is, and I really don't want to know his name because I'm going to have words for him. I would like to talk to this person because I need to tell this person, he needs to talk to me. We will have a conversation sooner or later, because his ideology is the reason why Jackson, Mississippi is in trouble. It's the reason why we are in trouble. Pick a county, pick a country, pick a state. It's because we have people who have stuff, who don't give back stuff, and who don't care about change. And then you have the few people who scratch and claw every damn day to try to make a damn difference to kids, adults, and seniors. Holly, I'll get to you, but I'm so pissed off that you have people who don't do. So now we're stuck with, let me ask you for $5. You have a person who has $1. They give $5, $10, and then you have a guy who spends $2,000. I don't care what.
And I want to make sure that we say that just because you have made it, just because you're doing well for yourself, doesn't mean that you are obligated to support everybody else. Because they say that's how some people who have done well for themselves, how they end up bankrupt because all of a sudden
We're not
60
asking for you
cousins
to.
show
We're not
up
asking you to.
that they didn't know about it. Say, hey, I'm your cousin. Can you give me some money? And can you pay my bills and stuff? So that's not what we're saying because there's that issue as well.
We're not asking you to buy chocolate bars for the city kids. We're asking you to help us put a person in position to help other people. That's all. We're not asking you to buy fucking turkeys for the whole community on
To
Thanksgiving.
help you even because you never know what who you might need. You never know who might be in that room who might be able to help you. But if your thing is, hey, I'm just going to go and buy this thing that has that we don't consider to be as valuable as
Holly,
Well, I think that
That's
to
what they're
put it
spending
in
the money on.
perspective, I'm not trying to say, well, he could have taken that $2,000 he put out on sneakers and advanced somebody's campaign.
no.
What I am saying though is that if he has the ability to put some contribution there, it is advancing a candidacy that will change policies that will make the system better.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Holly, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I've switched subjects. I'm in a quandary myself because everyone and their uncle is asking for money, and not people I know or anything. But I'm tremendously swayed by people buying elections too, and I don't know how you cross the line.
Well,
Okay, so just that's another point I wanted to address that, but I just want to recommend another article in today's
Okay.
Post.
Oh, Holly, before you do that,
Okay.
let me say that no one here has to give everybody and their uncle money just because they ask. Yeah, because politicians are going to ask. No one has to give, no matter how much money you have, you don't have to give it to people just because they ask.
You're too nice, but I'm gonna say it for myself if I was you. If I'm gonna call you the F word, the friend word, my family, whatever F word you can put towards it, I shouldn't have to ask you. Let's go with that.
Well, that's true. That's what you would think. But I agree with that, being from the position that I am, because if I've given money to people that I support because I know, and people who I don't support have asked me for money, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. But I didn't want to interrupt your point, Holly. I just wanted to.
Some of the greatest contributors to my campaign back in 2016 was two attorneys. One was a retired prosecutor who understood that the system was rigged. The other one was
a prosecutor. That's surprising. Because usually
white male too.
Yeah.
White male too.
Real surprising.
The other one was a retired lawyer, judge like myself, but I'm not retired, but he's retired. But he gave money, but he came up as part of the struggle. He was an activist in college, and he didn't finish law school until I think his 50s or 60s, but he came up through the Black Panther era. And so he was very familiar with the civil rights movement and the work of activism. So he understood that, hey, if she's going to run in this campaign, then she needs money. She just needs money. If she's going to get anywhere, she needs money.
Can anyone think of an election that was not swayed by money?
I can.
Go ahead, Will, because you're the oldest of us all, and I was gonna make a Jesus Christ comment, but
Okay. In 1988, Blair Ewing ran unopposed for the Board of Ed. And he threw in $300, and I threw in $300, And at the end, he gave me back my $300, or he told me to give myself back the $300. And all he spent was one picture. And he won, of course. So,
But that was unopposed, right?
that was unopposed.
Oh, okay, okay.
And what a big difference it is to be unopposed. Do you know that Andrew Friedson in our county council had no opposition?
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's weird, just weird.
I don't think there should be called an election if it's unopposed. That's how I feel. And I also believe in public financing, period, across the board.
Well, even with public financing, Montgomery County has public financing for the county executive and county council members. And that has been an issue because you have to have a minimum.
David
Number-
Blair, $6.1 million.
Wow.
Well, he didn't use public financing.
Wait a minute. He spent 6.1.
Yes. No, if you say so, I have no reason
He
to doubt.
spent $6.1
Mhm.
million, lost by 32 votes. I have an issue with that. Not
You
that he
do?
lost. Yes, not that he lost, but he's going after a seat and he spends $6.1 million to get.
I thought Trump did the same thing. Somebody else did the
Yeah,
same
Trump
thing.
did the
They're just
same
buying
thing.
a seat.
You spent
Trump did the same thing.
Or
No,
trying
the couple
to
bought
buy
a
a
seat.
seat. Trying to buy a
Yeah.
seat. Blair did it, 4 years ago too.
So someone needs to ask, we need to find out what does $6.1 million, even if you win, what's the return? Because no idiot in their lifelong mind spends $6.1 million knowing damn well you ain't getting that shit back.
Okay, well, I feel like I have to go back to Holly because I interrupted Holly.
Okay, yeah, okay, it was for you all to read an article in today's paper, which was about Landon students being recorded with chants on the metro with the N word, and we would not know anything about it had it not been recorded. Now, and then the school is kind of walking it back, and and I kept thinking, I got Carl Snowden's book. Why didn't I read his book? I mean, does he have any impact on Montgomery County? What do we do when we know this? They're waiting for what is Landon gonna do? Yeah,
You mean the school?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is the article kind of shifted. We're gonna see what Landon is. Well, obviously they didn't educate the kids very well to begin with. I don't think the onus should be on the miscreant school.
Really? On the school?
I remember with our oldest one, we actually looked at Landon as one of the, I don't even know why we looked at it because I like I said, I don't even know why we looked at it or what I was thinking at the time, but we did. And we decided that it was not the school for us because
Well, it wouldn't be for you, Mary Lynn, because it's
academically,
all males. So
no, for our son. Yeah, we
For
decided that wasn't the school for that wasn't the environment for him because
Before we
something about the academics. I thought that was actually lacking, and I couldn't believe how.
I do want to have a shout out real quick. I know we're coming to the top of our hour, and I want to thank everyone for coming on. You Be the Judge. You Be the Judge is here every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. You can always catch us here on iHeart, iTunes, and all your podcast channels. Oh my goodness, is that the infamous Steve Waddy? He's got to give us a shout out here at You Be the Judge. This man,
I'm back.
he pounds the ground when it comes to taking it down. Steve, tell us what's going on in the world of Steve Waddy and making sure these white people walk right. I don't know how you do it. You got a bunch
Right
of
now,
you got a
right
bunch
now,
of people.
I'm just following in Judge Barbara's footsteps. She's the one taking the lead and giving the community hope. So I just follow in her
Funny.
footsteps. See, I emailed Judge Barber and was like, "Can we do a contest for the students around voting rights?" and she took it and ran with it, and gave it a whole cash prize and everything. And I'm just like, I just wanted to get a discussion started for the kids so that they'll vote. And you know, she's really taking it on, and so I just follow her footsteps. She's definitely been my leader.
When it comes to activism and Judge Claudia Barber and Marilyn Pierre, I have some baton carriers here. I got some track stars. I tell you that. They think we're running a 4x4, and I'm just trying to hold it down and just trying to keep my pace. And these two ladies, they run. They run.
Keep pace.
I forget all that Judge Barber does. I think that everybody knows everything that she does, and she's so modest. She doesn't talk about it. So thank you so much, Steve, for bringing up how wonderful and fabulous this woman really is, and how much she contributes to her community and to us.
Yes, I mean that's just one thing.
So
that's
just one thing.
Exactly.
You know, let's also bring up the fact that this was a brainchild of Steve Waters. There's a youth essay contest now into fruition.
Yeah.
It is in Anne Arundel County, and juniors and seniors can receive cash prizes. Go to the Anne Arundel County NAACP.org website, look up the flyer. It should be there, but it is posted, and we are distributing it. The deadline for submissions, October 1. It can be poetry, it can be verse, it can be a rap, but it's an essay of 300 to 500 words. It's out there, and all you have to do is submit your work to us by the deadline date. It will be evaluated, and we will award prizes. It's out there. And thank you, Steve, for bringing spotlight to this issue, because we want those voters registered.
Hold on, Steve, I want you to give us one thing that you're working on that we need to stay focused on just a little bit here, either in Maryland or the United States as a whole.
Oh, wow. Well, tomorrow we have a housing trust meeting here in Anne Arundel County. As you all know, this is a nationwide issue where we've been in a nationwide seller's market. The price of housing has gone up exponentially since the pandemic, started. And one of the solutions that came from the early CARES Act money was rental assistance and emergency rental assistance and emergency mortgage assistance, because we had 1 million people going to unemployment in April of 2020. In the state of Maryland alone, we had 1 million people file for unemployment in April of 2020, which is unheard of, crazy. So people were missing payments and whatnot, and landlords felt like they could take advantage.
And they did.
Some landlords took advantage. Other landlords were trying to supplement income that they were missing. So our county executive had the foresight when he first ran for office to make affordable housing part of his main platform, and he's been working on a housing trust bill for the past 2 years that the NAACP supported. We had to get the state legislature to agree for us to have a housing trust to be able to build affordable housing in Anne Arundel County. And so tomorrow I'm going to learn how the county plans on using some of the CARES Act funds, $10 million, to do affordable housing construction in Anne Arundel County. So that's the one thing. And I want to say this is a nationwide issue. And we talk about the Inflation Reduction Act that Joe Manchin, has shepherded through the Senate. Joe Manchin stripped $150 billion worth of inflation reduction in affordable housing funds from the Build Back Better Act, which the House had passed, and he stripped that in the Inflation Reduction Act, and so there was no affordable housing assistance. Joe Manchin also stripped child care assistance.
That's right.
That families were receiving.
See, geeks like me read that stuff.
Yeah. Joe Manchin also stripped out, well, I think Kyrsten Sinema stripped out the the argument for private insurers to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies or purchase pharmaceutical companies. So the three areas that are the most, the largest causes of inflation and the largest aspects of the consumer price index, which measures inflation, are housing, education, and medicine. And transportation is the other one. Childcare those are the top five. So the Democrats, and the two most conservative, as I would say, have done their best to destroy family wealth and any assistance from the federal government for families to get out of this hole and assist families in paying for childcare, better education, healthcare, and housing.
It's evil. It's evil. It's evil.
It sounds like Steve should come back one of those weeks and we could spend an hour discussing this, because I really would like to discuss this more in depth, because there's so many things that we don't know about. We know what's reported in the press. Oh, look at that. Joe Manchin finally agreed, but what was agreed to and what was taken out, and why was it important to have had that?
He's devil incarnate.
He's
devil incarnate. And before we take off, I want Judge Claudia Barber.
One more thing, Dr. Paul.
Yeah.
The last thing we learned at the Maryland Civil Rights Gala that they also stripped out the funding for the Black farmers in the bill, in the Inflation Reduction Act. They had a line where they didn't mention the farmers by name, but it was the provision that they had from a previous bill or law that was passed, where they gave $2 billion to Black farmers, and that provision was defunded in the Inflation Reduction Act. Taking the $2 billion settlement, Pickford settlement, away from the Black farmers. So the Inflation Reduction Act was a horrible situation.
And I've talked with an attorney who works with for the Black farmers, been trying to get them their money for the longest time, for the last 10 years. I'm actually trying to get her some time to come on our show. Here, you be the judge. And again, thanks, Steve Waddy. And I want to go to Judge Claudia Barber, because she has not mentioned, she's so sneaky, and she has a podcast show. Remember, you guys don't know who she is until she's got her own show. Judge Claudia Barber, please introduce your show and tell us what time we can catch it and where we can see it.
Well, the podcast is on so many platforms. I forgot all the names of the platforms, but you can.
Oh, you hear what the FBI did? I'm telling you, the FBI does this to us every time. They monitor, right? Because they monitor our show. Most people don't know that the FBI monitors our. Hold on, see, they're doing it again. See, J. Edgar Hoover is alive. I'm telling you, they've been after Judge Claudia Barber since she's been alive. Ever since her father did a preach, they've been like, we're getting after your daughters. We're making sure they shut the shit down. Judge Claudia Barber, see if the FBI lets you get through.
Well, I'm going to try to put it in the chat here, but feel free to definitely look up our podcast on, it's called Being Well Informed. That's also the name of the show. And you can Google that under Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts, and it will come up. So thank you for allowing me to share that information with your audience. We just finished a talk show last night on the beginning the Alzheimer's journey with attorney Karen Pope on Woke. And she's part of the Senior Lawyers Division of the American Bar Association. But we've had Carl Snowden on our program. We hope to have Wes Moore in our program. We hope to have Brooke Learman on our program. We hope to have Kurt Schmoke on our program. So those are coming. And we also hope to have a talk show on Blacks, how they're treated in the newsroom. That hopefully is also coming to You Be the Judge. Hopefully next week, Mary Lynn Pierre, if I want to make sure we get that all lined up and part of this opportunity to share information with the public.
I know we're over our time. I want to say thank you guys, everyone. Be kind, be compassionate, be love, and let you know that You Be the Judge is here every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. and Eastern Standard Time. If you have any questions, comments, please contact us, put it in the inbox, and do all the things social media days does. And if you want to be part of our show and you think we want to talk about something, let us know, because we're here about informing, understanding, and action. Thank you. God bless. Be safe. Be kind and love. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.